In just 11 minutes, uncover 10 shocking takeaways from Danny Jones's talk with NASA physicist Kevin Knuth. From the Japan Airlines UFO radar ignored by NASA, to UFOs shutting down nuclear weapons, anti-gravity research silenced, oceans hiding alien secrets, and why we never returned to the moon, this summary has it all. Takeaway 1. The Japan Airlines UFO radar NASA ignored. The most jaw-dropping story that Kevin Knuth discussed with Danny Jones was the Japan Airlines UFO encounter from 1986. A Japanese cargo flight was traveling over Alaska when the crew saw glowing objects that seemed to be following them. At first, there were two smaller lights that danced in front of the cockpit and even shined their beams into the plane, which scared the pilots. The captain, Kenju Terauchi, reached for his camera to take a picture, but the lights vanished instantly. Then something even more unbelievable happened. A gigantic craft shaped like a walnut appeared and dwarfed their Boeing 747. Captain Terauchi later drew a sketch showing how small his plane looked compared to the massive object. Kevin Knuth said radar records confirmed the craft was there and even showed sudden jumps in position within single radar sweeps. That meant the object was moving in ways no human aircraft could. The speeds and accelerations were so extreme that Kevin calculated they reached up to 10,000 times the force of gravity. To put that in perspective, our fastest fighter jet can barely handle a few times the force of gravity before it breaks apart. The alien craft was moving so fast it could have traveled from Earth to the moon in less than an hour. For example, John Callahan, who was the FAA's head of accident investigations at the time, later revealed that the CIA and Reagan's scientific team confiscated most of the radar data, but he secretly kept copies under his desk for years. This case alone should have shaken NASA in the world. But as Kevin explained, NASA ignored it completely. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 2. Why NASA ignored UFO encounters. Kevin Knuth explained that when he worked at NASA, there was no interest in UFOs. If anyone mentioned them, people would laugh and say that NASA deals with real science, not nonsense. This culture of dismissal meant that even powerful cases like the Japan Airlines radar incident were brushed aside. Kevin said when he brought up the topic in conversation, the reaction was always scoffing. "We are NASA. We do real things," was the attitude. This explains why so much evidence was left to gather dust instead of being studied. For example, while the Japanese encounter was making headlines in the 1980s, inside NASA, the focus remained strictly on space projects like planetary nebula research and mapping stars. They treated UFO reports as beneath their dignity, even though these objects sometimes left physical evidence and were seen by trained professionals. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 3, UFOs and nuclear weapons are linked. Kevin shared how he first heard about UFOs interfering with nuclear weapons back in the late 1980s when he was starting graduate school in Montana. A professor told him that UFOs had flown over missile silos at Malmstrom Air Force Base and shut down intercontinental ballistic missiles. At the time, Kevin thought it was the silliest story ever, and he laughed it off with other students. Decades later, however, he discovered that Air Force officers had gone on record in Washington and confirmed the same story. That changed his view completely. If unidentified craft can disable nuclear weapons, then this is not a joke, but one of the most serious security issues imaginable. For example, in the 1960s at Malmstrom Air Force Base, multiple missiles were suddenly rendered useless while glowing objects hovered above the site, and the officers in charge documented the entire incident because they could not believe what was happening. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 4. UFO movements defy human physics. Kevin Knuth explained that the speeds and accelerations of UFOs make no sense under ordinary physics. Human pilots or passengers would be crushed instantly if they were inside a craft moving with 10,000 times the force of gravity. That means these objects cannot be moving through the air in the normal way. Kevin suggested they might be using something like warp space, where the craft bends the space around it and simply falls forward, so it never feels acceleration in the usual sense. Another possibility is a large-scale version of quantum tunneling, where particles move from one place to another without traveling the distance in between. For example, in the Japan Airlines case, the radar data showed the massive walnut-shaped craft jumping from point to point so quickly that it appeared in several places during the same radar sweep. This is completely impossible for any normal aircraft, but it matches the idea of space manipulation. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 5. Why anti-gravity research was silenced. When Danny asked about anti-gravity, Kevin said that although there was excitement in the 1950s, the research seems to have been pushed underground. He personally knows people who tried to study it and were pressured or harassed until they stopped. He explained that modern physics has also boxed itself into a corner. Many scientists follow the shut up and calculate mindset, where they only apply equations instead of trying to understand the bigger concepts. This means nobody is seriously trying to unify gravity with electromagnetism, which would be needed to even begin anti-gravity work. For example, Kevin receives emails every couple of weeks from people claiming they have solved anti-gravity, but their work is always filled with buzzwords and no real theory. Meanwhile, actual scientists who do get close often face threats or have their labs mysteriously shut down, which makes the whole field feel cursed. We're halfway through the video. Thanks for sticking with us. If you're enjoying it, hit the thumbs up and share it in your WhatsApp groups. If you'd like to support us, please tap the thanks button below. It helps us keep making great content. Drop a comment and don't forget to hit subscribe for more. Now let's continue with the video. Takeaway 6. UFO sightings are worldwide. Kevin Knuth said one of the myths in academia is that UFO sightings are just an American obsession. In truth, these events happen all over the world. He and over 30 scientists published a paper summarizing global research with hundreds of references. Cases have been recorded in Africa, South America, Europe, and Asia. One of the most famous took place in Zimbabwe in the 1990s, when school children saw a craft land and described beings that looked human-like. Kevin said UFOs also leave behind physical evidence, such as scorched trees, ground markings, and radiation traces. For example, Jacques Vallée studied tree bark that had been burned in Louisiana by a luminous craft in the 1960s. The bark was preserved in the tree's later growth, and scientists recently tested it again, showing the object emitted light as powerful as a nuclear reactor. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 7. UFOs in our oceans are overlooked. Danny asked about unidentified submerged objects, or USOs, and Kevin admitted this is one of the most ignored areas in UFO studies. Reports of disks coming out of the water and shooting into the sky have existed for more than a century. He said oceans make sense as a hiding place because they cover most of Earth and are less explored than the Moon or Mars. If alien travelers came from planets covered in water, our oceans would be familiar to them. Kevin explained that atmospheres vary wildly from planet to planet, but water always stays liquid between familiar temperatures, which makes it stable for life. For example, Jupiter's moon Europa has a 60-mile deep ocean under its icy surface, and scientists think it could host life. If intelligent beings evolved there, living underwater on Earth would feel natural. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 8. Why NASA never returned to the moon. Kevin Knuth said that although the first moon landings were historic, political excitement faded and budgets were cut, which stopped further missions. He remembered being 4 years old when his father pointed up at the moon and told him, "Kevin, there are people up there." Since then, no one has had that experience because humans have not returned. Kevin explained that while he worked at NASA, they proposed creating advanced digital maps for astronauts to use on the moon so they would not get lost, but their funding was denied. For example, he said such a map could have shown both the overhead view and what the landscape should look like ahead of the astronaut, making exploration safer. Despite ideas like this, focus shifted to Mars and space shuttles, leaving the moon neglected for decades. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 9. Could lost civilizations have existed? Danny and Kevin discussed whether humans are truly the first advanced civilization on Earth. Kevin said that if another high-tech society existed thousands or millions of years ago, most evidence would be erased by geological changes like plate tectonics and erosion. Danny brought up how trillions of dollars often go missing from government budgets, and some believe this money funds hidden projects or even secret civilizations that operate apart from the rest of us. For example, Catherine Austin Fitts discovered that $21 trillion could not be accounted for in the U.S. Department of Defense, and soon after, offshore accounts started growing rapidly, which suggests the money may have been redirected into secret programs. Now let's move to the last takeaway. Takeaway 10. Time travel remains a mystery. In the end, Danny asked Kevin whether UFOs could be time travelers from the future. Kevin said that under general relativity, time travel cannot go back to a time before the first time machine is created, so the theory has limits. It also does not explain UFO sightings from centuries ago. While the idea is fun, Kevin said it leaves too many questions. For example, sailors in the 1800s recorded seeing glowing disks rise from the ocean and disappear into the sky. If those were UFOs, then time travel theories involving modern humans make no sense. Kevin admitted the truth may be stranger than any theory we can imagine, and that is why open scientific study is so important. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support this channel, hit the thanks button below. It really helps us keep going. If you enjoyed this summary, please leave a like and share it in your WhatsApp groups. To join discussion about this video, drop a comment below. And for more videos like this, hit the subscribe button below.